Good afternoon. It's once again 6:30, and of course, this is Congressman Danny Davis, your host for the next 25 minutes of Hotline 21, the most interactive television show not only in Chicago, but any place that you go. Tonight, I am wearing my Tuskegee University Tuskegee Airman cap. And I'm wearing it for a number of reasons. One, I am wearing it because it's within the gift rule. And two, because somebody bought it for me and gave it to me. And that's why I'm wearing it. And so it's a good cap to wear, and especially given the fact that the weather is changing. It is getting cold. I thought global warming was really warming us up. And it was seemingly until today. But let me tell you, it's been a good week. A lot of different things are going on and taking place. I had the most wonderful event on Thursday, along with Cliff Kelly and the producers of America's Heroes Group. We had a great outpouring of food and fellowship for veterans, many of them who were homeless and came up to our place at 2815 West Fifth Avenue and were able to get a meal and fellowship with each other and just have a good time. We did take the time to honor some of the veterans. Some of them were just people in everyday, ordinary walks of life. Some of them were renowned individuals like Cliff Kelly and, of course, Dr. We'll hear him tomorrow on the Cliff Kelly Show. Dr. Damon Earl, who is also a colonel, lieutenant colonel in the military. And, of course, Cliff is retired from the military, but not retired from broadcasting. We acknowledged and honored Colin Powell, the outstanding leader and statesman, but we also paid tribute to a fellow, Howard Medley, that some people may have forgotten, but he was the owner of Medley's Moving and Storage Company, which is still operating and still functioning. Mr. Medley is the head of it, and of course, he's only 94 years old and is still functioning. And his number one mission right now in life is to try and clear himself of a record that he claims and says he never should have had. And so he's obsessed with the idea of having his record cleared. He doesn't want a pardon because he basically says he didn't do anything to be pardoned for, and that if he accepted a pardon, it would be an indication that he was guilty of something. And since he was not guilty of anything, then this isn't it. Since he was not guilty of anything, then he didn't have anything to be pardoned for or pardoned about. So we'll see. I had a wonderful meeting with the president, the new president of IIT, and his external affairs people. But the new president's a fellow named Raj Ekabadi. And of course, that sounds like a name that some of us may have difficulty pronouncing and all that. And it is. And that's one of the reasons that I think that all of our young people should have an opportunity, have a chance to learn a foreign language. That is, rather than just learning to speak English or Spanish or Ebonics or whatever version of whatever it is that you speak as a one language person. I took 10 hours of German in college, and unfortunately I've never had much opportunity to make use of it. I have been to Germany. I've actually been to Germany 3 times, but most of the people that I encountered in Germany were speaking English. And so I didn't have to have any interpreters or an interpreter. But I remember when we took German, I was a sophomore in college, and it was fun. Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Do you speak German? Or speak German? Kommen Sie her? Come here. Or will you come here? Mein Herr, Mr. Jones, Fräulein so-and-so, Miss so-and-so. All interesting stuff. So I'm advocating that we put more opportunity in our schools for children to learn a second language. Now, I know a lot of emphasis is being placed on making sure that young people take in school what they need to learn to be able to get themselves a job after school, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. But really, there's nothing that keeps an individual from having dual skills and dual knowledge. And so you can recite poetry and still know how to lay bricks. You can recite poetry and you can know about the Constitution of the United States and know how to put up drywall. You can know about what the presidents did and didn't do and know how to fix a television set or know how to do some of the complex things that people do using other forms of technology. Technology, of course, is the sine qua non right now for what's going on. And you need to learn it. As a matter of fact, I need to learn it so that I don't rely upon other people for some things that I may not know. And I can't use as an excuse the fact that when I was in high school and all of that, they didn't have a typewriter at all. There was one typewriter at my high school, and there was only one teacher who knew how to make a little use of it. And she didn't teach typing, she actually taught 3rd and 4th grade. But she also dubbed as the principal's secretary, sort of, and sometimes would help the principal out. Actually, Miss Betty B. Clark, who died 3-4 years ago. And we had the most wonderful time with she and Miss Susie B. Johnson. Both of them I graduated from college with because they didn't have to have college degrees when they were teaching elementary school, when I was in elementary school. But they did have programs that they could attend and end up earning a college degree, going split sessions and taking correspondence courses and going up taking classes on Saturday in all kind of ways. So there's always more than one way to skin a cat. So by the time I graduated, was ready to graduate from college, they were ready to graduate from college, and we all graduated at the same time. A few years ago, we went down and revisited where I lived. We had a family reunion, and these two women agreed to meet us out at the place where the school was when we were kids. And let me tell you, there was so much excitement and so much camaraderie. And we had such a wonderful time. We just had to cut our visit short because some people had to get back to Little Rock to the airport because they had flights to catch in order to get away. And I think that has been one of the highlights. And one of these ladies had actually taught school at that school for 60 years. She had actually taught at that school for 60 years. And to see somebody who had taught in one place for 60 years and was totally dedicated to it and totally immersed in it. The teachers were so effective. My good friend Paul Jakes had just finished reading a book the other day, and he called and told me he had read this book. And he had run across this poem, If, and he just liked it so much. He said, "You ever heard of it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, Paul, Miss Beatty taught us that poem when I was a little boy." And he says, "Could you say it tomorrow?" If you So I'm going to close my comments tomorrow at his birthday celebration. And I'm going to end it with If. I mentioned it the other day when we were doing a tribute to John H. Johnson, who grew up a few miles from where I grew up. And of course, Mr. Johnson started Ebony and Jet magazine and Fashion Fair, and actually at one time was dubbed to be one of the 400 richest people in the United States of America. He was the first black person to be put into the Forbes 400. And he was such an interesting guy until especially the part that gets down to saying that if you can learn to walk with kings and queens and not lose the common touch, if all men matter with you, but none too much. And even before that, if neither loving foes or friends can hurt you, meaning that people who don't like you, people who do like you, that none of them can really hurt you. And next week is designed to be just a great week, as this week was. Next week, the president is signing the infrastructure bill. and of course it's going to be on Monday. I am going in early so I can make sure that I'm there because I was invited to come to the White House when he signs it. And of course, I'm very pleased to have been invited, and I'll be very pleased to go. Also coming up next week, though, is the Build Back Better Act. And there are so many good things in that piece of legislation. I just hope, and I'm pretty confident, that we will have the votes to pass it. Right now, it is kind of scheduled to be on the agenda next week. It's called Consideration of the Build Back Better Act. I'm excited because so many of the provisions of that bill came through the committee that I serve on, the Ways and Means Committee. And many of the provisions actually in our office have my name on. We call those Danny Davis wins. And what that means is that these are provisions of legislation and of enactment of legislation that you may have led on. And so every time you have a big bill, a great big bill is a compilation of smaller bills. And so you don't always hear the name of somebody who may have been associated in a significant way with the bill because it may be Representative so-and-so's thoughts about one thing are in the bill. Somebody else's thoughts about something else is in the bill. Somebody else's thoughts might be about health care. That might be in the bill. Somebody else may have had a thought about men's health. That might be in the bill. Somebody else may have had a thought about children's health or about treatment of lung disease or about kidney dialysis treatment. Well, all of that gets put together and then it is in a bill. Sometimes it's an omnibus bill, meaning it's a broad bunch of different things that are put together. In this instance, it is Build Back Better. Right now we're having a great deal of conversation about rebuilding the Eisenhower Expressway. Well, obviously I'm excited about that because much of the Eisenhower is in my congressional district, coming from the western suburbs to downtown. And it might take about a couple $2 billion of that money to do for the Eisenhower what is needed. Now it's interesting and it's very good that the president of the Illinois Senate lives in my district, which means that part of my district is also his district. The Speaker of the House of the Illinois General Assembly is in and represents my district, which means it's also his district. State Representative LaShawn Ford, who just left here a minute ago, lives in my district, which means it's also his district. State Representative Camille Lilly lives in my district. State Senator Kimberly Lightfoot lives in my district, and she is the Democratic leader of the Illinois Senate, whereas Don Harmon is president of the Senate. She is the Democratic leader, which means she is the number 2 person in the Senate. So all of us are in agreement that the Eisenhower Expressway should be at the top of the governor's list and the top of the Illinois Department of Transportation's list to using the infrastructure money that's coming from the federal government to fix the Eisenhower Expressway. It's in need. Sometimes if you're out around Hillside or you're out in that area past Maywood and Bellwood and Broadview, that getting back into Chicago can be very challenging. And so we want to reduce that challenge. So we need all of our people, not just the people who elected officials, but we want to make sure that there's a big coalition of preachers, of teachers, of school districts, of block club leaders, block club presidents. We need everybody to let Governor Pritzker know that we want the Eisenhower Expressway renovation to be the top transportation, the top road repair, the top infrastructure project for the state of Illinois. And so if you want to do something to help, even if you don't have a car, you can still advocate for the Eisenhower renovation to be number 1 on the governor's list for making use of the infrastructure money that will come from the federal government. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And it's always good to interact and exchange thoughts and ideas. We are ready, and we're gonna, a lot of folks don't know that cable is back on track, but you can always call us at 312-738-1060. And you can even call us also at our office to talk about any of these issues and ask questions about any concerns that might be on your mind. Our time is gone. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good week. Do something good for everybody else, something good for yourself. But when you give the best of yourself, that's when you truly give as we embark upon and approach Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful weekend.